All right, some brand new Gallup poll numbers asking voters, what are the most important problems facing the country today? Look at this. Topping the list, the economy, 25%, unemployment and jobs second with 19%. Okay, no surprise there, but look at that. 17%, government corruption and abuse of power, then healthcare and budget deficit. Let's bring in our political insiders. John LeBoutillier, former Republican congressman for New York. Pat Caddell, Fox News contributor and a former pollster for President Jimmy Carter. Doug Schoen is also a Fox News contributor and a former pollster for President Bill Clinton. All right, Doug, let's start with you. The number that really jumps out is that, abuse of power. Is that a nod to the president's creeping authoritarianism?
I think, in a word, yes. Bottom line, the American people, and this is across the board, have a sense that we have seen government showing profound contempt for the American people, for the rule of law, and a sense that government is responsive not to the people who elected them, but to themselves. There's profound contempt. Gregg, it's a lawless government.
Yeah, well, Pat, some are accusing the president of essentially ignoring or disbanding Congress and ruling by executive order.
Well, he's ruling essentially like a semi-despot here, something.
A monarchy.
Well, kind of like a Caddell. What we used to be, this country we're now becoming a country of men, not laws. And we have a political class, a ruling class, if you will, with the president at the height of it. And look, this started with George Bush. He was saying, Cheney said, well, the supremacy of the president. But this is now taken every week where it's going on. But let me tell you what we really have here. What we have is, as Doug alluded to, the utter contempt of the American people. They're lulled by lies. And we are basically depressed by cynicism from Washington, all in the service of basically exiling the truth as they
and contempt for the Constitution,
and the contempt for the Constitution,
document.
and the contempt for the idea of who is governed and who is not.
Let me put it. You served in Congress, John, so I'm going to put this to you. Let's put it up on the screen. The Wall Street Journal NBC News poll. Look at this. I mean, people are so fed up with government. 57% would replace every member of Congress.
Yeah, well, in the past. People say, I hate Congress, but I like my own Congress.
Right.
If this were to be true, where they really would vote out everybody, it would be the single greatest way to fix our political system is to throw everybody out when things are bad so that every one of these Congress people is nervous when November comes around. Unfortunately, 90% of them know they're going to get reelected.
95, John.
Excuse me, Doug. 95% know they're going to get reelected.
Because the system, as the public believes, is rigged to make sure they do.
All right. Now, the president has made a recent profession of calling the various scandals phony. And some are calling him dishonest when it comes, for example, to the NSA. I want to play, there's this news story out there. An audit of the NSA finds thousands and thousands of violations. But the president said it wasn't happening. Take a listen.
If you look at the reports, even the disclosures that Mr. Snowden's put forward, all the stories that have been written, what you're not reading about is the government actually abusing these programs and listening in on people's phone calls or inappropriately reading people's emails. What you're hearing about is the prospect that these could be abused.
Was the president dishonest, misinformed, or clueless?
Well, I don't think we know the answer to that, but he sure was not correct. The NSA's own audit that was released and published at the behest of the Washington Post on Friday showed, I think, some 2,700 abuses. Now, this is from the NSA.
Just in the Washington area.
Just in Washington. Gregg, this is clearly a sense that, to go back to the Nixon days, of a statement by the president that's inoperative.
And for every violation, 2,776, there could be thousands of Americans who were violated.
That's my point, yes.
As I said, it's only Washington. We haven't seen the whole area.
And it's only an audit by themselves of themselves. But now, none of us...
And of one collection unit, and there are a great many of them.
But, Gregg, why do we trust any agency to investigate itself? I mean, we don't. We're not allowed, when the IRS comes after us, we're not allowed to say, oh, I audited myself. And
I'm glad you brought up the IRS. Here is another promise made by the president, this one back in May. Take a listen.
I've reviewed the Treasury Department watchdog's report. and the misconduct that it uncovered is inexcusable. It's inexcusable, and Americans are right to be angry about it, and I am angry about it. I will not tolerate this kind of behavior in any agency, but especially in the IRS, given the power that it has and the reach that it has in all of our lives. And as I said earlier, it should not matter what political stripe you're from. The fact of the matter is that the IRS has to operate with absolute integrity.
He is tolerating it, isn't he, Pat? Because an IRS agent has now testified that targeting's still going on.
Excuse me. He and the administration have now said all of that's a phony scandal. The contradiction here is palpable. And if the president didn't have a press that basically was with him and an opposition that just rolled over, I mean, he would be hoisted on that petard. I mean, people are not stupid, Gregg.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of Nixon when things were getting bad. Remember, he said, the country's had enough of wallowing in Watergate.
It's just
Phony
a third-rate
scandals.
burglary, Nixon said, you know.
But Gregg, there's a difference between a burglary, which wasn't third rate, which was outrageous, that was planned by the president's aides, that the president himself participated in a cover-up. That's one limited act. This is the IRS, the NSA, the AP, Benghazi. There is a scandal of unprecedented proportions. And Gregg, the congressional leadership is not setting up select committees to look at this. Don't you think the NSA should be looked at by a select congressional committee?
It wasn't that long ago that the president was ridiculing these Tea Party groups that are being targeted by the IRS. Here's a clip.
Good. You've all seen the ads. Every one of these groups is run by Republican operatives. Every single one of them, even though they're posing as nonprofit groups with names like Americans for Prosperity, the Committee for Truth in Politics, or Americans for Apple Pie. I mean, I made that last one up, but this is why, look, this is why we've got to work even harder in this election.
John?
When he is saying that, he knew, and I think we can say this now, he knew that the IRS was targeting those groups because there was the head of the IRS had been 158 times.
Right.
The chief counsel had been.
The chief counsel appointed by Obama was in on
to
it.
the White House,
right,
158
and he
times.
okayed the criteria to use to monitor these groups. What we have here is a Nixonian type of use of executive power to go after the administration's opponents.
All right.
But
And yet
on a
no
bigger
one
scale
huge,
than the Nixon
much more
administration
widespread.
did it.
Yeah.
If a Republican did what Obama has done, what the Obama administration's done, there would be, I believe, an impeachment.
All right, they had an article of impeachment against Nixon for musing about using the IRS.
I know.
Here they're actually doing it, not a peep out of anybody.
Let me just say, when you have, as we saw with the healthcare iconic moment here, where the president goes down and cuts a deal where the ruling class says, oh, no, we have to protect the Congress and their staffs so they don't pay what we pay. And he cuts the deal with Boehner and the Republican leadership. You understand why the country wants to throw everyone out.
Let's put up the Fox News poll, serious situation or phony scandals, and it lists the various ones. At the very top, take a look at this, Benghazi. 78% say this is serious. Only 17% say it's phony. Question. Is the president using intimidation? Is he trying to hide people who may have been involved and know something? Or is he simply running out the clock or all of the above?
I think it's all of the above. Clearly, he's not making the survivors available. He's clearly running out the clock. And he's basically attacking his opponents for having the temerity to criticize him. Bottom line, this should be a democracy where free speech and dialogue back and forth goes.
No, we're a banana republic.
Yeah, checks and balances are gone, and we are moving to being a democracy.
I think we have got to now say, as bad as all of this is, that it's up to the opposition party to step up here and
but they're not going to do it.
But they're absent, John.
I know, but the checks and balances of our system only work if they will stand up, at least on Benghazi.
All right, guys, got to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about New Jersey Governor Christie taking some veiled shots at Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal during the RNC meeting in Boston on Thursday. This after he had earlier ripped into Kentucky Senator Rand Paul. Is this healthy or self-destructive? Joining us now, John LeBoutillier, Pat Caddell, Doug Schoen, our political insiders. So there were no cameras in this one particular address. Let's put it up on the screen, though, what Christie said. Quote, I think we have some folks who think they have to be college professors. I like that one. For our ideas to win, we have to govern, and if we don't win, we don't govern. I'm going to do anything I need to do to win. What do you think?
Well, look, that's politics 101. But the larger issue we have here is that the Republicans, who are very unpopular, have stark divisions on Obamacare, on defense, on NSA. Yeah. But bottom line, Gregg, when you've got a very unpopular president to have a circular firing squad doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, but Reince Priebus tried to rationalize it today, Pat, and he said, look, it's healthy in America to have these debates. You buy it?
Well, I buy some, but I'm with Doug. Circular firing squads don't work. But look at here. We have a bunch of candidates running like little candidates of the last race. We just spent 12 minutes of talking about this vast divide between the American people and the political class. And not one of these candidates, as far as I can see, has made an issue of the health care, has attacked the establishment in Washington. They're all, much less take on Obama. They're all fighting among themselves.
And they all want to be conservative. You know, to be the Republican nominee, you have to be a conservative. Now, the essence...
Is that foolhardy?
No. The essence of conservatism is skepticism about government power and the abuse of power against us, the people. Now, Christie, he can sit here and say, oh, I want to win. What is the quote? I'm going to do anything I need to win. Today, we learned he has the Romney campaign team running his campaign.
But look at the numbers. He's the only guy that beats Hillary Clinton. And I know it's early, but he is a guy that can broaden the appeal of the party.
He can broaden the appeal, but also, as we discussed last week, he has the highest negative as the choice for president of any Republican.
So did Ronald Reagan, didn't he?
Well, Ronald Reagan was seen as too conservative. Chris Christie is seen as having one real problem: the hug of President Obama the week before the election.
But something else. I liked his speech at the convention. I was one of the people who actually thought it was a really interesting new approach.
Right.
You have to have a message. Most importantly, you can talk about winning, but you have to have message. And you know what presidential politics is about? It's about shaping the future. No one, including Christie, is doing that.
You never heard Ronald Reagan ever talk publicly about the process. I'm going to win. Here's how to win a campaign. He talked to you, to the people, about what's going to make your life better.
He also had the 11th commandment.
Never speak ill of another Republican.
The world's a different place than 68, 76, and 1980.
No.
Yeah, and you know what? The American people want leadership. They want hope. They want a direction. They were very upset in 1979 and 80 about the directionless nature of America. They're looking for hope, opportunity, and a strategy for the future.
Yeah, well, I was there for that, let me tell you. But
I know.
It was not fun.
We remember.
But the point with Reagan was he ran his primary and his general election together. He was running on big ideas, whether you thought they were crazy, which I did at the time, and many of which turned out to work.
You know, John, they've got 3 years to come up with big ideas.
Well, they should already have them now. Reagan had them for 40 years, okay? And the country caught up to Reagan. But here's the problem with Chris Christie. He can be in a town hall in New Jersey attacking a public school teacher for wanting more goodies, okay? Gets big applause. But he takes that same approach and uses it on fellow Republicans. It doesn't work.
Right. There are two issues, the economy and abuse of power. The Republicans need to speak to them.
Our political insiders, gentlemen, thanks so much. You can get more, and they have a lot to say, obviously. Every Monday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern at live.foxnews.com. And they'll, of course, be back here again next Sunday. You can also follow them on Twitter at FN Insiders. Heather?